The scream tore from my throat before I could stop it. The men circling me laughed, their crude words cutting through the forest air like knives. My back pressed against rough bark as they closed in. Then the growl came from somewhere behind them, low, rumbling, promising violence. The men froze. Even I went still, my heart hammering against my ribs. Something massive moved through the shadows between the trees. Golden eyes burned through the darkness, fixed on the men who had cornered me. "What the hell?" one of them started. The growl deepened, more warning than sound. "Run!" The voice that emerged from those shadows held absolute authority, not a request, a command that made my bones vibrate. The men scattered like startled birds. I stayed pressed against the tree, shaking. Those golden eyes turned to me now. And I felt their weight settle over my skin. Dangerous, protective, ancient. A man stepped into the moonlight, tall enough to block out stars, broad shoulders that spoke of power barely contained, dark hair that looked like he'd been running his fingers through it, and those eyes, wolf eyes in a human face. "Are you hurt?" His voice had gentled, but I could still hear the growl underneath. I shook my head, not trusting my voice yet. He moved closer. Each step deliberate, careful, like he was approaching something wild that might bolt. "I'm Kieran, Alpha of the Northern Pack." Alpha, the word hit me like cold water. I'd heard whispers about the wolves in these mountains, stories passed down through generations of humans who lived in the valley below. Most people called them legends, fairy tales to scare children into staying close to home, but here he stood, real as the bark against my back. "You're one of them." The words slipped out before I could think. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I am." No denial, no attempt to explain away what I'd seen, just truth, delivered with that same quiet authority. "My name is Elena," I said, finally finding my voice. "Elena." He repeated it like he was testing how it felt on his tongue. "You shouldn't be out here alone after dark." I wasn't planning to be. I gestured toward the path that led back to town. I was taking photographs of the old mill, lost track of time. His eyes flicked to the camera still clutched in my hands. I'd forgotten I was holding it. "The mill's been abandoned for 30 years, he said. "That's why it makes good photographs. Everything forgotten has a story." Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. "What's your story, Elena?" The question came out softer than everything else he'd said. I looked at him, really looked, past the inhuman eyes and the aura of barely leashed power, at the way he kept his distance, even though every line of his body screamed protection. At how he'd saved me without asking for anything in return. "I'm nobody special," I said. "Just a photographer trying to make rent." "I doubt that." His voice held certainty I didn't understand. The wind picked up, carrying scents I couldn't identify. Pine and earth and something wild. Something that made my pulse quicken. "I should get you back to town." He turned toward the path, then paused. "Unless you'd rather I called someone to come for you?" "No." The answer came out too fast, too eager. "I mean, I don't want to be alone out here again. Not after." I gestured vaguely toward where the men had disappeared. He nodded once. "Stay close." We walked in silence for a while. I kept stealing glances at him from the corner of my eye. He moved like he owned these woods, like every tree and stone recognized his authority. But when he looked at me, something else flickered in those golden depths. Hunger, maybe, or longing. It should have terrified me. Instead, it made heat pool low in my belly. "How long have you been Alpha?" I asked, needing something to break the tension building between us. 12 years. That's a long time to be responsible for everyone. He glanced at me, surprise clear in his expression. "Most humans don't think about it that way. Most humans don't know you exist, and now you do." He stopped walking, forcing me to stop too. That changes things. The weight in his voice made my chest tight. "Changes them how?" "There are rules about humans who know our secrets." Fear crept up my spine. "What kind of rules?" "The kind that keep both our people safe." He started walking again, and I hurried to keep up. My mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. "I won't tell anyone," I said. "I swear." "I know you won't." The certainty in his voice only made my fear sharper. "Because you're going to K me?" He stopped so abruptly I nearly walked into his back. When he turned, his eyes blazed with something that looked like pain. "I would never hurt you, Elena." Each word came out with careful precision, like a vow. "Never." "Then what?" "You'll have to stay, at least until the council decides what to do." My mouth went dry. "Stay where?" "With the pack. With me." The words hung between us like a bridge I wasn't sure I was brave enough to cross. For how long? I don't know. Honesty, raw and unvarnished. I looked back the way we'd come, toward the life I'd been living. Small apartment. Freelance photography jobs that barely paid enough to survive. No family. No close friends. Nothing that would be missed if I vanished for a while. Then I looked at him. At the way his hands had clenched into fists at his sides. At the tension in his shoulders that spoke of a man fighting himself. "Okay," I said. His eyes widened. "Okay? I'll stay. For now." Something that looked like relief flooded his features. But underneath it, I caught a glimpse of something else. Something that made my breath catch. Possession. Like he'd wanted me to say yes for reasons that had nothing to do with council rules or pack safety. The thought should have sent me running back toward town. Instead, it made me step closer. "Where will I sleep?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "There are guest quarters in the pack house." "And where do you sleep?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Bold in a way I'd never been before. But something about him made me feel brave. Made me want to push boundaries I'd never even approached. "Not close enough," he said. So quietly, I almost missed it. Heat flared between us. Sudden and intense. I felt it in the way his eyes dropped to my mouth, in how my body swayed toward his without permission, in the charged air that made every breath feel like an invitation. Then he stepped back. "The pack house is a mile ahead," he said, his voice rougher than before. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, but as we walked deeper into his territory, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was crossing more than just a physical boundary, that whatever waited for me in that pack house would change everything about who I was. And for the first time in my life, that possibility didn't scare me. It thrilled me. The pack house rose from the forest like something out of a dream, stone and timber that looked like it had grown from the earth itself. Warm light spilled from dozens of windows. And I could hear voices and laughter floating on the night air. Home. The word whispered through my mind without permission. Kieran stopped at the edge of the clearing, his hand hovering near the small of my back. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his palm. "Ready?" he asked. I looked up at him, at the uncertainty flickering behind his confident mask. "Are you?" His smile was sharp and wild and beautiful. "No, but that's never stopped me before." 3 days at the pack house taught me things I never expected to learn. Werewolves made excellent coffee. They argued over TV channels just like anyone else, and they were fiercely protective of their own, which apparently now included me. I discovered this when I tried to walk to the small town at the base of the mountain to get supplies. I'd made it maybe 50 yards from the house before Kieran appeared on the path in front of me. "Going somewhere?" he asked. His voice was deceptively casual, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes scanned the tree line like he expected danger to emerge from every shadow. "I need film for my camera, and probably some clothes that aren't 3 days old." "Make a list. Someone will get whatever you need. I can handle a simple supply run, Kieran. Not alone." The finality in his voice made my spine straighten. "I'm not a prisoner." "No, you're not." He moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "But you're under my protection. That means you don't leave pack territory without an escort. And if I refuse?" Something dangerous flickered across his features. "Then I'll follow you." "The whole time?" "Every step." Heat pooled low in my belly at the thought of him stalking through the town behind me. All that barely leashed power focused entirely on keeping me safe. That seems excessive, I managed. You don't understand the dangers out there. Enlighten me. He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. When he spoke, his voice held an edge I hadn't heard before. There are others like me, other packs. Not all of them share my views about humans. What views are those? That you're not disposable. The words hit me like a physical blow. Some of them would hurt me because I know about you. Some of them would kill you, his hands clenched at his sides, without hesitation, without regret. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warm afternoon sun. How many others know what I am? Word travels fast among our kind. By now, most of the territory leaders will have heard about the human the Northern Pax Alpha claimed. Claimed? My voice came out higher than I intended. His eyes snapped to mine, and I saw the exact moment he realized what he'd said. Protected, he corrected quickly. The human I'm protecting. But the damage was done. The word hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to examine. I want to go back to the house, I said. He nodded and fell into step beside me. But I could feel the weight of his attention like a physical touch, could sense the questions he wasn't asking, the same questions that were spinning through my own mind. What did it mean to be claimed by an alpha? And why did part of me want to find out? That evening, I found myself in the pack house's massive kitchen, helping Luna prepare dinner. Luna was Kieran's second-in-command's mate. A woman with silver-streaked hair and knowing eyes, who'd taken me under her wing from the moment I arrived. He's different with you, she said, passing me a bowl of salad greens to wash. Different how? Calmer. More settled. She smiled, but also more on edge, if that makes sense. It did, actually. I noticed the way he seemed to relax when I was in the same room, but also how his attention never wavered from me, like he was constantly evaluating threats I couldn't see. Luna, I said carefully, what does it mean when an alpha claims someone? Her hands stilled on the vegetables she was chopping. Why do you ask? Kieran said something earlier about how other packs would see me as the human he'd claimed. And what did he say when you asked him about it? That he'd misspoken, that he meant protected. Luna's laugh was soft but knowing. Oh, honey, Kieran doesn't misspeak. My chest tightened. Then what did he mean? To claim someone is to declare them yours. Under your protection, yes, but also... She paused, searching for words. Also to declare your intention to make them part of your life, permanently. The bowl slipped from my hands, clattering against the sink. But we barely know each other. Do you think that matters to a wolf who's found his mate? The word hit me like lightning. Mate? You can't feel it? Luna's eyes were gentle but serious. The pull between you. The way the air changes when you're in the same room. I could feel it. Had been trying to ignore it since the moment I met him. The way my body seemed to hum with awareness whenever he was near. How his scent made something deep inside me purr with contentment. That's not possible, I said weakly. Why not? Because I'm human. So was I, once. I stared at her, my mind reeling. You were human? 23 years ago. I was a wildlife photographer doing a story on wolf populations in Montana. Got lost in a blizzard and stumbled into pack territory. Her smile was soft with memory. Marcus found me half-frozen and furious about my ruined equipment. And you stayed. Not right away. I fought it for months. The pull, the connection, everything I'd been raised to believe told me it was impossible. But you changed your mind. I changed everything. She reached out and squeezed my hand, and I've never regretted it. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway, heavy, familiar. Every nerve in my body went on high alert. Kieran appeared in the doorway, his eyes immediately finding mine. The tension I'd seen in him earlier was gone, replaced by something warmer, hungrier. Dinner ready? He asked, but he was looking at me like I was the only meal he was interested in. 5 more minutes, Luna said, amusement clear in her voice. He nodded but didn't move, just stood there watching me with those golden eyes until I felt heat climb my neck. I should set the table, I said, desperate for something to do with my hands. Elena. My name on his lips made me freeze. We need to talk. After dinner. It wasn't a request. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He left as suddenly as he'd appeared, and I sagged against the counter. He knows I told you, Luna said quietly. How? He consented on you. The knowledge, the fear. I looked down at my hands, surprised to see them shaking. What happens now? Now you decide what you want your life to look like. Dinner passed in a blur of conversation I couldn't focus on, and food I couldn't taste. Kieran sat across from me, participating in discussions about pack business and territory patrols, but I felt his attention like a brand against my skin. When the meal finally ended, he stood. Walk with me, he said. The other pack members melted away like smoke, leaving us alone in the suddenly quiet dining room. He led me through the house and out onto a wide deck that overlooked the forest. The moon was full, casting everything in silver light. In the distance, a wolf howled, long and mournful. One of yours? I asked. One of mine. He moved to stand beside me at the railing, careful to leave space between us. Elena, what did Luna tell you? That you didn't misspeak earlier. His hands gripped the wooden rail. No, I didn't. She said claiming someone means declaring them yours. It does. And that you found your mate. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Yes, he said quietly. My breath caught. Hearing him confirm it made it real in a way that Luna's explanations hadn't. How is that possible? I'm human. Mate bonds don't care about species. They care about souls. He turned to face me, his eyes intense. From the moment I caught your scent in those woods, something inside me recognized you. Recognized me how? As mine. The word came out rough with need. As the other half of everything I am. I stared at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. That's insane. Yes, it is. I don't know anything about being a werewolf's mate. I don't know anything about having a human mate. His mouth curved in a rueful smile. We'll figure it out together. And if I say no? Pain flashed across his features. There and gone so quickly I almost missed it. Then I'll respect your choice. But I'll also spend the rest of my life knowing I let the most important person in my world walk away. The honesty in his voice broke something open inside my chest. This is crazy, I whispered. Yes, I could get hurt. Not while I'm breathing. You could get hurt. I'm already hurt, Elena. Have been since the moment I realized what you were to me and thought you might leave. I looked out at the moonlit forest, at the wild beauty of his world. Then I looked at him, at the vulnerability he was trying so hard to hide. If I stay, what changes? Everything, nothing. He moved closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. You'll still be you, I'll still be me, but we'll be us together. And the council, the other packs? We'll learn to accept it, because I won't give you up. The fierce certainty in his voice sent shivers down my spine. Show me, I said. Show me what it means to be yours. His eyes flared gold, and suddenly he was moving. Not toward me, but away, putting the entire width of the deck between us. Elena. My name came out like a warning. I'm not asking you to mark me tonight. I'm asking you to help me understand what I'm choosing. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. He was silent for so long, I thought he might refuse. Then he spoke, his voice rough with restraint. To be mine means you'll never be alone, never be unprotected. It means I'll know if you're hurt, afraid, in danger. It means your happiness becomes more important to me than my own life. And what do you get? Everything. The word came out like a prayer. Your trust, your presence, the right to care for you, to provide for you, to stand between you and anything that would harm you. That doesn't sound very equal, doesn't it? He moved closer again. Drawn by something he couldn't resist. You would have my loyalty, my protection, my devotion, but I would have your heart, your partnership, the honor of being chosen by someone who could have anyone. I couldn't have anyone. You could have me. The The simple statement hit me like lightning. Direct, honest, devastating in its certainty. Kieran, I know it's fast. I know it doesn't make sense by human standards, but wolves mate for life, Elena. When we choose, it's forever. And you choose me? I chose you the moment I saw you. The only question is whether you'll choose me back. I looked at him standing there in the moonlight. All that power and certainty focused entirely on me, at the way his hands shook slightly despite his confident words, at the hope and fear warring in his golden eyes. I thought about my old life, the loneliness I'd carried like a constant ache, the feeling that I was waiting for something without knowing what. Maybe I'd been waiting for him. Ask me again in a week, I said. His face fell slightly, but he nodded. A week. And Kieran, I want to learn about your world, all of it, the good and the bad. Why? Because if I'm going to choose this life, I want to choose it with my eyes open. Something that looked like respect flickered across his features. Tomorrow then. We'll start tomorrow. I nodded and turned to go inside, but his voice stopped me. Elena? Yes? Thank you. For what? For not running. I smiled, surprised by how easy it felt. The night's still young. His laughter followed me into the house, rich and warm and full of promises I was finally ready to hear. The next morning brought chaos. I woke to shouting and running footsteps in the hallway outside my room. Through the window, I can see pack members moving with urgent purpose across the compound. I threw on clothes and rushed downstairs to find Kieran in the main hall, surrounded by his inner circle. His face was granite, his eyes blazing with barely contained rage. What's happening? I asked. Every head turned toward me, and I saw the moment they all noticed the same thing. Kieran's protective instincts had kicked into overdrive. The air around him practically vibrated with lethal energy. Go back upstairs, Elena, he said, without looking at me. Tell me what's wrong. Now. The alpha command in his voice made several pack members flinch, but it only made me angrier. Don't you dare use that tone with me. His eyes snapped to mine, surprise flickering across his features. Around us, the other wolves went very still. Elena, I said I wanted to understand your world. That includes the dangerous parts. For a moment, I thought he might argue. Then Marcus, his second in command, cleared his throat. Eastern Pack crossed into our territory an hour ago. A dozen wolves moving toward the town. My blood went cold. The human town? They're not after humans, Kieran said, his voice deadly quiet. They're after you. The words hit me like ice water. Me? Word about our situation has reached Alpha Vaughn. He's decided to test my commitment to protecting a human. Test it how? By forcing me to choose between your safety and open war with his pack. I sank into the nearest chair, my legs suddenly unsteady. He wants to kill me to prove a point? He wants to see if I'll start a war to keep you safe. The implication hung heavy in the air. If Kieran fought for me, people would die. If he didn't, what are you going to do? His smile was all teeth and promised violence. I'm going to remind Alpha Vaughn why crossing me is a bad idea. Kieran, no. I stood moving toward him before I could think better of it. You can't start a war over me. I can and I will. People will die. People will die if I don't. His hands cupped my face, forcing me to meet his blazing eyes. Do you understand what you are to me, what losing you would do? I could see it in his expression. The edge of madness that losing a mate would bring, the way it would break something fundamental inside him. There has to be another way. There is. Marcus spoke up from across the room. Single combat, alpha to alpha. No. The word tore from my throat. Absolutely not. It's the cleanest solution, Kieran said. Winner takes all. And if you lose, I won't. But if you do? His eyes softened slightly. Then you'll be free to choose your own path. Without you. Without me. The thought made something inside me shatter. Here I'd been taking time to decide if I wanted him, and now I might lose him entirely. I won't let you do this. It's not your choice, Elena. Like hell it's not. I pulled away from him, anger and fear making me bold. If you're fighting for me, then I get a say. The challenge has already been issued. Vaughn is waiting at the border. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You said I was yours to protect. Well, you're mine too. The words slipped out before I could stop them, but I didn't take them back. And I protect what's mine. Something shifted in his expression. Wonder and fierce joy and desperate hope all tangled together. Elena, I choose you, Kieran, right here, right now. I choose you. The effect on the room was electric. I could feel the pack's energy shift, their acceptance and approval washing over me like warmth. But it was the look on Kieran's face that stole my breath. Like I'd just given him everything he'd ever wanted. You're sure? I'm terrified. But I'm sure. He crossed to me in 2 quick strides, pulling me into his arms. For a moment, the world narrowed to just us. His scent surrounding me, his heartbeat against my cheek, the rightness of being held by him. Then reality crashed back. We have to go, Marcus said quietly. Vaughn won't wait forever. Kieran pulled back, his hands framing my face. Stay here, let me handle this. Together, I said firmly. We face it together. His smile was fierce and proud and utterly devastated. Together. The border was a clearing deep in the forest where 2 territories met. Ancient oaks formed a natural amphitheater, and I could feel the weight of history in this place. How many challenges had been fought here? How many lives decided? Vaughn was waiting with his wolves, a man who looked like violence barely contained. Taller than Kieran, broader, with scars that spoke of battles won. His eyes found me immediately, and his lip curled in disgust. So this is the human worth starting a war over? This is my mate, Kieran said, stepping slightly in front of me. And she's worth ending one. Vaughn laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet forest. Mate, you've gone soft, Kieran. Forgotten what it means to be alpha? I remember exactly what it means. The question is whether you do. Enlighten me. An alpha protects what matters most. Kieran's voice carried absolute certainty. Without question, without compromise, without mercy. Even when what matters most makes you weak? Love doesn't make me weak, Vaughn. It makes me lethal. The truth of it resonated in every word. I could feel the change in him, the way his protective instincts had sharpened into something diamond-hard and deadly. We'll see. Vaughn began stripping out of his clothes. Traditional rules, no weapons, first blood or submission. Agreed. Kieran, I caught his arm as he started to undress. Be careful. Always am. Be smart, too. His smile was quick and private just for me. Yes, ma'am. I wanted to tell him I loved him, that choosing him was the easiest decision I ever made, that losing him would destroy me. Instead, I kissed him, quick and hard and full of everything I couldn't say. Come back to me, I whispered against his lips. Try to stop me. The transformation was brutal and beautiful. Bones cracking and reforming, muscle and sinew shifting in seconds. 2 massive wolves faced each other across the clearing. Kieran's wolf was midnight black with those same golden eyes, power and grace and predatory intelligence. But Vaughn was bigger, his brown coat marked with battle scars. They circled each other slowly, looking for weaknesses. Then Vaughn attacked. The impact when they collided shook the ground, a blur of fangs and claws and primal fury. I found myself pressed against Marcus, his steady presence the only thing keeping me upright as I watched the 2 wolves tear at each other. Blood began to flow, first from Vaughn, then from Kieran, crimson drops marking the forest floor. He's faster, Marcus murmured, but Vaughn's got reach and weight. He'll win. I said it like a prayer. He'd better, because if he doesn't, we're all dead. The words sent ice through my veins. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the safety of everyone I'd come to care about. Kieran seemed to realize it too. His attacks became more focused, more strategic. He was fighting not just for love, but for his pack, for our future. Vaughn lunged, jaws gaping. Kieran twisted aside at the last second, his fangs finding the other wolf's throat, but not deep enough for a kill. Just enough to draw blood and establish dominance. Vaughn submitted, his wolf going limp in Kieran's grip. It was over. Kieran held the position for several heartbeats, making sure everyone understood the outcome. Then, he released Vaughn and stepped back, his golden eyes finding mine across the clearing. I ran to him without thinking, wrapping my arms around his massive wolf form. His fur was warm and soft and smelled like home. "Thank you," I whispered into his neck. He shifted back to human form, pulling me against his chest. "For what?" "For fighting for us." His arms tightened around me. "I'll always fight for us, Elena. Always." Around us, the two packs watched with varying degrees of acceptance and resignation. The challenge was done. The outcome decided. I was pack now, protected and claimed, and home. "I love you," I said, finally ready to speak the words out loud. His smile was radiant. "I love you too, my mate, my heart. Forever, forever." As we walked back toward Packlands, I felt the rightness of it settle into my bones. This wild life, this impossible love, this choice that had changed everything. The moon was rising again, painting the world in silver light, and for the first time in my life, I knew exactly where I belonged, in the arms of the alpha who'd claimed my heart, in the pack that had become my family. Home. 2 weeks later, I stood in the same clearing where Kieran had fought for me. But tonight, it wasn't violence that brought us here. It was celebration. The pack had gathered for the mating ceremony. An ancient ritual that would bind Kieran and me together in the eyes of both human and wolf law. Luna had spent the day helping me prepare, explaining traditions that stretched back centuries. "Nervous?" she asked, adjusting the simple white dress we'd chosen. "Terrified," I admitted, "but in a good way." She smiled. "That's how I felt too." I looked at myself in the mirror. Same face, same body, but something fundamental had changed in these past weeks. I carried myself differently now, moved with the confidence of someone who knew they were loved completely. "He's been pacing for an hour," Marcus called from the doorway. "If we don't start soon, he's going to wear a hole in the ground." I laughed. "Tell him I'm ready." The walk to the clearing felt like stepping into a fairy tale. Lanterns hung from the oak branches, casting warm light over the assembled pack. Everyone I'd come to care about was there, faces glowing with joy and anticipation. And at the center of it all stood Kieran. He'd traded his usual jeans and flannel for dark pants and a white shirt that made his golden eyes shine. But it was the expression on his face that stole my breath. Wonder and love and fierce possession all tangled together. I walked toward him slowly, savoring this moment, the hush of the watching pack, the silver moonlight, the rightness of moving toward my future. When I reached him, he took my hands in his. "Ready?" he asked softly. "For anything. With you." The ceremony itself was simple. Ancient words spoken in a language that predated countries and borders. Promises exchanged under the light of the full moon. The pack's voices rising in song as Kieran's teeth found the junction of my neck and shoulder. The mark burned like fire and felt like coming home. When it was done, when we'd been declared mates in the eyes of the pack and the moon and each other, Kieran pulled me into his arms. "How do you feel?" he murmured against my ear. I took inventory. The mark on my neck thrummed with warmth. Something new and wild hummed in my veins. But underneath it all, I was still me. Different, but right. "Any regrets?" I looked around at the celebrating pack, at the faces that had become dear to me, at Luna wiping away happy tears, and Marcus raising a toast, at the wild beauty of this place that had become home. Then I looked at my mate, my alpha, my choice. His smile was incandescent. "Good. Because you're stuck with me now. Forever?" "Forever." The pack's celebration continued around us, but I only had eyes for Kieran, for the way the moonlight caught in his dark hair, for the fierce tenderness in his expression as he looked at me. "Dance with me," he said, extending his hand. "There's no music. Listen." I closed my eyes and listened. To the wind in the trees, to the distant howl of a wolf calling to his pack, to the steady rhythm of Kieran's heartbeat, to the sound of my own heart finally singing. "I hear it," I whispered. We danced in the clearing, where he'd fought for the right to love me, where I'd chosen a life I never could have imagined, where two souls had found each other against all odds. When the song ended, when the pack had finally dispersed to their homes, Kieran and I walked back through the moonlit forest together. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we build a life, together. Any idea what that looks like?" His smile was soft and full of promises. The best adventure we've ever had. I thought about the old Elena, the one who'd wandered through life waiting for something to change, who'd felt incomplete without knowing why. She seemed like a stranger now. "I love you, Kieran. I love you too, Elena. My mate, my heart, my home." The words settled into my soul like seeds in fertile ground. Home. Not a place, but a person. Not a destination, but a choice made new every day. As we reached the pack house, I looked up at the moon one more time, full and bright and blessing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, other packs to negotiate with, a human world to navigate while keeping our secrets. The daily work of building a life with someone whose nature was as wild as the forest around us. But tonight, we had this. Love freely given and fiercely claimed, a future full of possibilities, a pack that had become family, and each other, always each other, the alpha and his chosen mate walking into whatever came next together. The first sign of trouble came 3 months later, during the spring thaw. I was developing photographs in the dark room Kieran had built for me when Marcus burst through the pack house doors, his face grim with news that made my blood run cold. "Council's called an emergency session," he announced to the room. "They want Elena to appear before them, tomorrow." Kieran went very still beside me, the kind of stillness that preceded violence. "On what grounds?" "Complaints have been filed by 3 separate packs. They're questioning the validity of a human-wolf mating bond." I felt the mark on my neck pulse with heat, responding to Kieran's rising fury over the past months. I'd learned to read the subtle signs of his emotional state through the mate bond we shared. Right now, every instinct he possessed was screaming, "Protect." "They have no authority over pack matings," Kieran said, his voice deadly quiet. "They do when those matings potentially impact inter-pack relations," Marcus replied. "Vaughn's been spreading poison, claiming your attachment to Elena makes you weak, that it compromises your ability to lead." My ability to lead has never been stronger. It was true. In the months since our mating ceremony, Kieran had negotiated 2 territorial disputes without bloodshed and successfully mediated a resource-sharing agreement between 4 neighboring packs. But I could see the worry creeping into his expression. "What exactly does the council want?" I asked. "To test the bond," Marcus said carefully, "to determine if it's genuine or merely political convenience." The words hit me like ice water. "Test it how?" Kieran's hand found mine, his grip warm and reassuring. "Traditional methods. Questions under oath. Physical separation to measure the impact. Examination of the mark." Examination? My free hand moved instinctively to my throat. "They'll want to verify its authenticity. Make sure it's not merely cosmetic." I'd learned enough about pack politics to understand what was really happening here. This wasn't about the validity of our bond. This was about power, about traditional wolves who saw change as threat. And if they decide our mating isn't valid, the silence that followed was answer enough. "They can't unmake a true mate bond," Kieran said finally. "But they can declare it politically unsanctioned, make it difficult for other packs to respect our territorial claims, which would mean isolation, possibly conflict, definitely making enemies of wolves we couldn't afford to antagonize." "Then we go," I said. "We prove them wrong, Elena. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. The council isn't known for their hospitality toward humans." "Good thing I'm not just human anymore," It was true. The mating mark had changed me in subtle ways, enhanced senses, improved reflexes, a connection to the pack's collective consciousness that sometimes overwhelmed me with its intensity. I wasn't Wolf, but I wasn't entirely human either. The examination process can be invasive, Marcus warned. They'll push boundaries, test your limits. Let them. I stood, decision crystallizing in my mind. I have nothing to hide. Kieran's eyes blazed with pride and worry in equal measure. You're sure? I'm sure about us. That's all that matters. The council convened in neutral territory, an ancient lodge built into the side of a mountain that had served as a meeting place for centuries. As we approached the imposing stone structure, I felt the weight of history pressing down on me. How many lives had been decided within these walls? Remember, Kieran murmured as we climbed the steps, they'll try to separate us, to make you doubt. Don't let them get in your head. I won't. And if anything goes wrong, it won't. I stopped walking, forcing him to face me. Kieran, look at me. Whatever happens in there, we face it together, just like we promised. His smile was fierce and grateful. Together. The council chamber was exactly what I'd expected. Ancient stone walls lined with the banners of every major pack. A semicircle of chairs occupied by the most powerful alphas in North America. And at the center, a single chair that looked uncomfortably like a defendant's dock. Alpha Kieran of the Northern Pack, the lead counselor announced, his voice echoing in the vaulted space. You appear before us with your claimed mate to address concerns regarding the validity of your bond. I appear before you with my true mate, Kieran corrected, steel in his voice, to address the fears of those who mistake change for weakness. A ripple of tension went through the assembled alphas. I recognized several faces from the descriptions Kieran had given me. Traditionalists who viewed humans as prey at best, inconveniences at worst. Elena Vasquez. The counselor continued, turning his attention to me. You stand accused of manipulating an alpha through artificial means, of weakening the Northern Pack through deception. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my spine straight. I stand before you as Kieran's chosen mate, bound to him by forces neither of us fully understand, but both of us choose to honor. Pretty words, but words are cheap. This came from a woman in the front row, her silver hair gleaming in the torchlight. Alpha Morgana of the Western Pack, if I remembered correctly. We require proof. What kind of proof would satisfy the council? Kieran asked. Separation, the lead counselor replied. 3 days apart. If the bond is genuine, the physical and emotional impact should be significant. I'd heard about forced separations between true mates. The psychological torment, the physical pain. Some wolves didn't survive it. And if we refuse? I asked. Then the council will assume you have something to hide. A trap then. Refuse and we looked guilty. Accept and risk everything on the chance that what I felt for Kieran was strong enough to withstand deliberate torture. We accept, I said before Kieran could object. His head snapped toward me, alarm flaring in his eyes. But I held his gaze steadily, letting him see my certainty through the mate bond. Elena, we accept, I repeated, louder this time. The counselor's smile was predatory. Excellent. The separation begins now. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. They kept me in a windowless room deep in the mountain, with only artificial light and the steady drip of water somewhere in the walls for company. No contact with Kieran. No sense of where he was or how he was faring. The physical symptoms started within hours. Nausea, headaches, a bone-deep ache that made every movement agony. But it was the emotional torment that nearly broke me. The constant sense that part of my soul had been torn away. I understood now why some mates died during forced separations. The pain was exquisite, designed by nature to prevent wolves from straying too far from their bonded partners. But I also understood something else, something the council hadn't counted on. The pain was proof. Every agonizing moment was evidence that what Kieran and I shared was real, deeper than attraction, stronger than politics, written into the very fabric of our beings. On the second night, when the torment was at its worst, I felt something else through the bond, Kieran's love. Reaching across whatever barriers they'd erected between us, his strength lending itself to mine, and my own power, steady and sure, flowing back to him. By the third morning, I knew we'd passed their test. The reunion was almost anticlimactic. They led me back to the council chamber on shaking legs, my body still recovering from the ordeal. Kieran was already there, looking as haggard as I felt, but blazing with relief the moment he saw me. The urge to run to him was overwhelming, but I forced myself to walk steadily to the chair they'd provided, to sit with dignity intact despite the tremors running through my hands. "Well?" I asked the assembled alphas. "Are you satisfied?" The lead counselor's expression was unreadable. The physical symptoms were conclusive. You clearly experienced genuine separation distress, as did Alpha Kieran. Morgana added, though she didn't sound happy about it. However, the counselor continued, questions remain about the long-term stability of such an unprecedented bond. What questions? Kieran's voice could have cut glass. A human mate cannot produce wolf offspring, cannot contribute to pack strength in traditional ways. What happens when the novelty wears off, when political pressures mount, when you're forced to choose between your pack's needs and your mate's limitations? The attack was more subtle than I'd expected, but no less vicious. They weren't questioning the bond itself anymore. They were questioning my worth. "May I address the council?" I asked. Surprise flickered across several faces. Clearly, they'd expected me to remain silent while my fate was decided by others. "Proceed," the counselor said. I stood, drawing on every ounce of strength the mate bond provided. "You're right that I can't bear wolf children. I can't shift forms or challenge rivals in physical combat. By traditional measures, I offer little to strengthen the northern pack." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Kieran's alarm pulsed through our connection, but I pressed on. "But I can do things no wolf can do. I can move freely in human society without suspicion, gather intelligence, build relationships with humans who control resources you need. I can document your history through photography, preserving pack memories for future generations. And I can love your alpha with a devotion that transcends species, strengthens his resolve, and makes him more effective as a leader." I paused, meeting the eyes of every alpha in the room. "You measure my worth by wolf standards and find me lacking. But I wasn't made to be a wolf. I was made to be Kieran's mate. And in that role, I am exactly what he needs." The silence stretched for long moments. Then Kieran rose, moving to stand beside me. "My mate speaks truth," he said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "In the 3 months since our bonding, the northern pack has grown stronger. Our territory is secure, our alliances are stable, our future is bright. If you call that weakness, then perhaps it's time to reconsider what strength really means." More murmurs, these more thoughtful than dismissive. "The council will deliberate," the lead counselor announced. "You'll have our decision by sunset." The hours that followed were torture of a different kind. Kieran and I were allowed to remain together, but confined to a small waiting room while our fate was decided by others. I tried to read, to distract myself with photography magazines someone had thoughtfully provided. But the words blurred together, meaningless in the face of my anxiety. "Whatever they decide," Kieran said suddenly, breaking the tense silence, "it doesn't change anything between us, doesn't it? If they declare our mating invalid, then we'll face the consequences together, just like we promised." I looked at him, at the fierce certainty in his golden eyes, and felt some of my tension ease. Together. Always. When sunset arrived, we were summoned back to the council chamber. The alphas looked as tired as I felt, suggesting their deliberations had been anything but easy. After extensive discussion, the lead counselor began, "The council has reached a decision regarding the mating bond between Alpha Kieran and Elena Vasquez." My heart hammered against my ribs as he paused dramatically. "While unconventional, The bond appears to be genuine and beneficial to both parties involved. Therefore, the Council recognizes the validity of this mating and extends its protection to Elena Vasquez as a full pack member. Relief flooded through me so completely I nearly collapsed. Beside me, Kieran's satisfaction pulsed through our bond like warm honey. However, the counselor continued, and my relief curdled into dread. This recognition comes with conditions. What conditions? Kieran asked, his voice carefully neutral. First, Elena must submit to monthly check-ins with a council representative for the first year to ensure her integration into pack society continues smoothly. Acceptable, I said, before Kieran could object. Second, any offspring produced through artificial enhancement or supernatural intervention will be subject to immediate council review. The implication made my stomach turn, but I nodded. Third, this precedent does not automatically extend to other human-wolf pairings. Each case will be evaluated individually. Understood. And finally, the counselor's smile was sharp. Should this mating prove detrimental to interpack relations, the council reserves the right to revisit its decision. A threat, then. Behave or face consequences. The Northern Pack accepts these conditions, Kieran said formally. Excellent. Then this session is concluded. As the alphas began to file out, Morgana approached our small group. Up close, she looked older than I'd initially thought, her silver hair streaked with white. You handled yourself well, she said to me quietly. Better than I expected. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You've won this battle, but the war is far from over. There are wolves who will never accept what you represent. Change? Hope. Her smile was sad. And some of us have been disappointed by hope before. She left without another word, leaving me to puzzle over her cryptic warning. Ready to go home? Kieran asked, sliding his arm around my waist. Home. The word settled into my bones like a benediction. More than ready. The drive back to pack territory passed in comfortable silence. I watched the familiar landscape roll by, feeling truly relaxed for the first time in days. We'd done it, proven ourselves, earned the right to love each other without political interference. At least for now. Penny for your thoughts? Kieran said, as we turned onto the dirt road that led to the pack house. Just thinking about what Morgana said, about hope. What about it? She seemed sad. Like she wanted us to succeed but didn't expect us to. Kieran was quiet for a moment, considering. Morgana lost her human mate 40 years ago, before the council was willing to consider cross-species bonds. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. She had a human mate? James. They were together for 3 years before rival packs used their relationship as an excuse to challenge her authority. He was killed in the fighting. Oh God. She's carried that loss ever since. Never took another mate. Threw herself into council politics to try to prevent other wolves from facing the same choice she did. I understood now why she'd seemed so conflicted. Seeing Kieran and me together must have been both painful and healing. Maybe our success gives her hope that things can be different now. Maybe it does. As we pulled up to the pack house, I saw Luna waiting on the front steps. Her face lit up when she spotted us, and she rushed to the car before we'd even finished parking. Well, she demanded, before I'd fully exited the vehicle. Recognized and approved, I said, unable to keep the grin off my face. She whooped with joy, pulling me into a bone-crushing hug. I knew it! I knew they'd see sense eventually. Eventually being the key phrase, Kieran said dryly. Other pack members began emerging from the house. Drawn by Luna's celebratory noise, soon we were surrounded by congratulations and questions, and general chaos that felt wonderful after days of council formality. Welcome home, Luna, Marcus said, using the title reserved for an alpha's mate. Luna, not just Elena anymore, but Luna of the Northern Pack. The weight of that responsibility settled onto my shoulders, but it felt right, natural. Like everything else about this impossible life I'd chosen. That night, after the celebration had finally died down and the pack house had settled into quiet, Kieran and I lay in our bed, listening to the forest sounds that had become my lullaby. His arm was wrapped around me, my head pillowed on his chest, the mate mark on my neck humming with contentment. "No regrets?" he asked softly. "None. You?" "Only that it took me 32 years to find you." I smiled, pressing a kiss to his collarbone. "We found each other when we were supposed to." "Fate? Love." His arms tightened around me. "Same thing, I think," as I drifted toward sleep. I thought about the path that had brought me here, the wrong turn that had led me into those woods, the attack that had drawn Kieran to my rescue, the impossible choice to stay with strangers who'd become family. Every decision had led to this moment, this life, this love that had changed everything about who I thought I was. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, pack business to attend to, council check-ins to endure, the constant work of proving that what we'd built together was worth protecting. But tonight, we had this, each other, the quiet certainty of a bond that had survived political scrutiny and emerged stronger. "I love you," I whispered into the darkness. "I love you too, Luna. My heart, my home." The words followed me into dreams, filled with moonlight and wild places and golden eyes that had claimed my soul. Home, not where I'd been born, but where I'd chosen to belong. In the arms of the alpha who'd seen something worth fighting for in an ordinary human woman with a camera. In a pack that had welcomed a stranger and made her family. In a life I never could have imagined but wouldn't trade for anything. The woman who'd wandered lost through those woods months ago was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who belonged, someone who'd found her purpose in the most unexpected place. Luna of the Northern Pack, mate to an alpha, keeper of memories through her camera, bridge between two worlds that were learning to coexist. And for the first time in my life, that was exactly who I wanted to be. If you enjoyed this journey of love against all odds, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.